Hey everyone, and welcome. If you've ever felt that sinking feeling of chaos on a big project, well, this explainer is definitely for you. We're going to talk about a discipline called configuration management, or CM, and how it can help you turn all that project chaos into real, actual control. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about a problem that's probably all too familiar. Then, we'll introduce the solution, configuration management. We're going to break it down into two key levels, starting simple and building up. And then we'll tie it all together with the four big pillars that make the whole system work.
All right, let's kick things off by talking about a scenario that I'm willing to bet is going to sound painfully familiar to a lot of you out there.
I mean, be honest, has this happened to you? You're rushing to meet a deadline, you finally send off that final file, and 5 minutes later you realize it was version 2, not the actual final version 3. Or even worse, a teammate accidentally saves over your file, and poof, hours of your work are just gone. It's a nightmare, right? It's frustrating, it costs time and money, and it happens all the time. And this is exactly the gap we're trying to close. Over here on one side, you've got the chaos. You're losing work, you're shipping the wrong stuff, and there's just constant confusion and rework. And over here on the other side is the goal, a project where you can trust your work, where you know you're delivering the right version, and where everything runs with efficiency and quality. Configuration management, well, that's the bridge that gets you from here to there. Okay, so we've established the problem, right? The chaos. Now let's talk about the solution, the toolkit that brings order to that chaos. Configuration management. So what is this thing really? In simple terms, configuration management is just a structured way of keeping track of your work. It's a formal discipline, sure, but it's really about using a few smart techniques, like giving things unique names, controlling versions, managing changes, all to make sure that the thing you're working on is, the right thing. So what's the payoff here? Why should you even care? Well, because good CM directly attacks all those problems we just talked about. It seriously cuts down the risk of losing work, it makes sure you deliver the right version to your customer every time, which prevents that awful, costly rework, and, let's be honest, that leads to much, much happier customers. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, it all starts with level 1. This is the absolute first step. And level 1 is really just one thing: version control. That's it. It's the bedrock, the absolute foundation of everything else we're going to talk about. It's just the simple act of keeping track of the different versions of your stuff. And look, in practice, this doesn't have to be complicated at all. It can be as basic as just naming your files properly, report_v1, report_v2, that kind of thing. Or maybe it's just taking a quick backup before you make a big change. The point here isn't some fancy software, not at this stage. It's about discipline and consistency across the team. All right, so once you've got that basic habit down, we can move up to level 2. This is where we go from a simple practice to building a real, managed system for the entire project. Okay, so first things first in level 2, you have to decide what actually needs to be controlled. Your source code, the official design documents, your test plans. A huge mistake people make is trying to control every single file, which just creates a ton of overhead and slows everyone down. You have to be selective, and then you set up a real system to manage them. This could be a tool like Git, or it could just be a lockdown server with really clear rules. And this right here brings us to maybe the single most powerful idea in all of configuration management. It's this concept of a baseline. So what is a baseline? The easiest way to think about it is like a snapshot in time, or a stake in the ground. It's an officially approved version of something, a document, code, whatever, at a specific moment. Once it's approved, that's it. It becomes the stable, reliable foundation that everybody agrees to work from. Let me give you a perfect real-world example. Say your customer officially signs off on version 1.0 of the project requirements document. Boom. That document is now a baseline. It's locked in. You can't just go in and make a few tweaks anymore. If a change is needed, it has to go through a formal process. Which, of course, leads to the next obvious question, right? What happens when you need to change it? Once something is baselined, you can't just have people making random changes. That could totally derail your budget, your schedule, your quality, everything. And this is where a formal process becomes your best friend. So, step 1. Someone puts in an official change request. Then the team looks at it and figures out the impact. Is this going to cost more? Is it going to push back our deadline?
Based on that analysis, someone with authority, like the project manager, approves or denies it. And if it's a go, you track that change all the way until it's done.
And to round out level 2, you have the last 2 pieces of the puzzle. And they're all about trust and accountability. You've got to keep detailed records of every single change, who did what, when, and why. Think of it like a complete history. And then, every so often, you do audits to make sure your records are actually correct and that the system is working the way it's supposed to.
All right, we've gone through the nitty-gritty details of the different levels. So let's pull back now and look at the big picture. How does this all fit together into one powerful framework?
It really boils down to these 4 pillars. If you remember nothing else from this, remember these 4 things. First, you identify what you need to manage. Second, you control the changes to those things. Third, you use status accounting to record the full history of what happens. And finally, you run audits to verify that the whole system is accurate and has integrity. That's the whole shebang.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway here? Configuration management is way more than just taking backups. It's a professional discipline that makes sure the right people have the right version of the right thing at the right time. It's how you go from hoping you've got the right thing to knowing you do. It's how you guarantee quality.
So I'll just leave you with this one thought to chew on. When you look at your own work, your own projects, are they being managed by chaos or are they being managed by control?